Welcome to the People's View, and help me welcome Chris Agar. You're Chris. You're head of the Hillsborough County Republican Club.
That's right. I've been the chairman now for a little bit over a year, and we've got a great county. It's Hillsborough County, but it's the 29 towns minus the two cities of Manchester and Nashua.
Right.
The two cities are big enough that they have their own
Republican
city committees.
Yeah.
And we do coordinate with each other, but what I'm responsible for are those 29 towns.
And now you're running for...
Yes, I'm running for the National Committeeman.
Right.
And what that is, it's the New Hampshire representative to the Republican National Committee. There are three people that represent us, the state Republicans. One is the chairman of the New Hampshire GOP.
Right.
That's Steve Stepanek, who used to be essentially a neighbor of mine in Amherst, which is where I live. He's moved a little bit further north now. That's an assigned position, so the state chairman. And then there's a committee man and a committee woman.
Right.
The committee woman is Juliana Bergeron. She's been there for 2 4-year terms. I believe she's going to be unopposed. And we have a current committee man who's running for a 5th term, and I'm challenging him. And it's a very friendly race. We're both good, solid Republicans, but I think it's really good to give a choice.
Sure.
And if you believe in term limits, I'll help make that happen if enough people vote for me.
Okay. And what is the reason that you think you're the better person to help run?
So my views are a little bit more conservative. Nothing drastic, but a little bit more conservative. And also, I've got new and different contacts. And as the Republican Party is kind of going through, trying to regain seats in 2020, I think it's good to expand the party, grow it, have more people involved, not fewer people. And so, why not have a change, positive change, get some energy, new people, new blood, and we can move out. I've shown in Hillsborough County that I can organize, and it's really my passion. I've got the time. I went half-time at work this past year, so I've got the time, and I found that all of my spare time, that half-time that I gained, I thought I was going to do all these great honeydew projects and the house and cars.
A little travel?
We'd still do travel, but all my free time at home I spent helping with Republican politics.
I see.
So it's a natural growth to that.
And the organization is part of what you did at work, too.
Yes, I ran a laser development and production part of the business. It was pretty big, about 350 people. Supported it, and I had 7 direct reports with 7 different programs or program families. We were extremely successful over the 3 years I was in charge. In Hillsborough County, we're the only county that has accomplished the missions that were set forth by the state party for this year, which is recruiting candidates, and we've already recruited almost all of our candidates for 2020 throughout my area of responsibility. And we also organized now to a total of 16 town committees. And so the organization that we have is, I have a board, and then we have 16 town committee chairmen and 70 committee members.
Really?
And so that's the organization that I've been, essentially the chairman of. And it's not me, it's all of these 16 people, the board. We've just got very blessed with very competent, hardworking people, and I've been very fortunate to be able to be the chairman of that group.
The lead is the key in getting some of that stuff together and having them all work together and understand what the objective is and know how to get there.
Yeah, it's a team effort.
Right.
And I think the leader's job is not to do everything, but to empower the organization so that the skills of those individual people can be used as best as those people
Most
want to use them. And to motivate people and to set the tone.
Well, have you done anything special that is different than you saw when you came in?
Well, yes, there's a couple of things. One, we had a family picnic, and in the past couple of years, we've had a very successful picnic at a restaurant. And, people would come and politicians would give speeches, which is what political committees do. And but we said, this year, let's try to do a family picnic. So we went to Dave Wheeler's farm, former executive counselor, running again, and he's a great guy. Hope to see him on the ballot again. We went to his farm, and we tailored it for families and children. And so we had a hayride. We had water balloon games, just different activities for families and kids. We did a barbecue cookout instead of, going catering. And so we had people flipping burgers and turning dogs, and great family fun. And my favorite part that was unexpected is I was riding in the hayride. It was a tractor pull, no horses. And some of the kids from the ground started launching water balloons at us. No. So good family, old-fashioned fun. So that was different. We also did a shotgun shoot in the morning, separate from the family part, and shooting clay pigeons. And that was our fundraising part. And we also did a machine gun shoot separately. We teamed up with a fishing game club, and had a great, safe, fun experience, exercising our Second Amendment rights. And we also used that event to support the governor's vetoes for some of the bills that passed the democratically controlled House and Senate. And so I guess you could say we had a twofer, exercise your rights, have a good time, raise money, and support the governor's vetoes with a petition at the same time.
Getting people to know one another, too, is something when they want to, when they're going to get into the really hot stuff right close to the, that's when you want to all out there working, making sure. Have you also looked for expanding the membership, and how did you do that?
Yeah, so we are limited in our formal committee. We're limited by the state bylaws.
Right.
But the 16 town committees, how we were able to expand it, we already had about 10. But we recruited town chairmen one at a time. There's no easy way to do this. And so it's calling people on the phone, explaining what the job would be, why it's important, meeting with them for breakfast, going over what the duties are, the kind of support that we can provide to help them. And then once they get on their own, supporting them, giving them training and the materials they need to be successful. But let them run their committees. So whatever they want to do in their committees, they're totally fine to do. It's also supporting them once they have events, making sure that we can help. And all of the committees now are recruiting their own people. So instead of us at the county level recruiting individuals, we're recruiting the leaders who can then recruit in their towns. And so I guess I was in the Army for a while, and I look at that chain of command and empowering people to get the mission done and letting them do it, but checking up on them and making sure they have the resources to do it.
Have you found anybody who's doing something novel, something new, and something that works out very well?
Well, down in Hollis, they have a committee that is very, very active. They've got really good social media, and they had a candidate forum, not for actual candidates, but for prospective candidates, so they could learn and see if they wanted to do it, share stories from current office holders. And I thought that was very novel to do that early to generate the interest. So that I thought was really, really interesting. I hadn't seen that happen before.
One of the things that I've noticed statewide is the activity of the younger generations. And I was wondering if there's any programs that any one of your towns have initiated to attract some of those people, those early voters, or maybe new families that are just getting into the area. And there's a lot of people that are moving into the county.
There's quite a few, quite a few. So I think two things that I would kind of point to. One is the college Republicans at St. Anselm's are actually in Goffstown, and we have a Goffstown Republican Committee, and so they're part of that committee.
I see.
And they have their own college Republicans at St. A's, but they're also part of the town committee.
Right.
And they have been very active out of St. A's. And when the vice president came up a few months ago, I went to St. A's, and I got to peek in because I drove in the entourage. And right in the front row, it's all the St. A's college Republicans that I recognized right in the front row for the vice president. So that's I think a really good. Example. And the other one is all of our events. We try to say, hey, is there a way we can attract different people and expand the variety so that you can have interests that can span the spectrum. And so we did a golf tournament. Not a lot of young people. They can't afford it generally. Family picnic, machine gun shoot. But we also had paintball.
Oh.
And the paintball, we had some very generous sponsors, and we were able to get the young Republicans and college Republicans a subsidized rate, so they only had to pay about 1/3 of the cost. And that was really to socialize between some of the, I'd say, more mature or older Republicans like me and the younger ones in a fun event to do a little bit of team building, a little bit of bonding. So that was very enjoyable. But I think the most important thing is treating everybody, regardless of their age, who they are, where they come from, education. Treat everybody with dignity and respect. So if you have a young Republican, maybe 19, 20 years old in college, or a younger one, treat them with the same kind of respect and dignity as you do somebody like yourself. Somebody who's been a state representative, very experienced and knowledgeable. They might not have the same experience level, but if you treat everybody with dignity and respect, they're part of the team. And so that's I think the approach that we want to take.
Yeah, good. Do any of the schools have young Republicans, the high schools in the area?
There are a couple, and it's a little bit harder in the high school level, and we haven't pushed that, but we did have a couple of high school students come forward. We were at the agriculture fair in New Boston, and they said they had a little Republican group. They wanted some help, and so our local town committee has been trying to help them out. But it's mostly the colleges where I think we need to provide the opportunity for college Republicans
definitely
to organize.
Yeah, I started my career in the Republican Party and the Young Republicans in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, and we had some very active things there that happened, but that's way back in the 50s, in the 60s. So, but I think that's one that we missed the opportunity to get them started earlier, to get them interested in seeing how this is, how it's run, and how it affects their lives.
Right. There's a pretty good group at St. A's, which is in our county. Southern New Hampshire University has a good group.
Do they?
Plymouth State and Keene. And if you think of Plymouth State and Keene, you think, they're relatively liberal areas, and the college campus is relatively democratic. But those students, those young Republicans, have a lot of courage to stand up and advocate for what they believe in. And we owe it to them to support them so that they can have a fair opportunity to express their views.
And they help out on the voting days and stuff like that too.
They do.
I mean, that's some opportunity to just see all the people that come to vote, because New Hampshire does have a very good turnout in voters.
Yes, it's got a great turnout, and right around the corner is February 11th, the primary.
Right.
And even though the president doesn't have what I would consider any serious competition, it's still important to get out there and vote.
That's right.
And it's just that right that we have and privilege to elect our leaders, and it's always good to get out there and vote. I would encourage everybody to go out and vote on both sides of the aisle.
Well, what kind of programs have you started to do that to get them to come to that? You said you were very well organized with these things.
So there's a Republican National Committee
Right.
victory team, and they're in the state headquarters generally.
Right.
But we have people assigned to Hillsborough County. And so for the president, for example, they organize, the targets and the goals for what we'd like to achieve. And then they transmit it to me, and then I transmit it, I flow it down to the town chairman. And we can always do better, but the beauty of what we have now is at least we have that organization in place that can execute a plan.
They're ready.
They're ready. They're on standby. And we have all the traditional things, Carl, like phone banking, door knocking, talking to your friends and neighbors. It's all of the traditional things that work on both sides that we're organized to do.
Have you tried any kind of a political discussion that's open to everybody, not just what you might speak at one of your meetings, but as something you have like an open forum someplace?
We have not done that at the county, and some of the towns may, because the towns mirror their local town government, or even the cities. But Hillsborough County, since we're only a subset of the county, we don't have that natural counterpart, say, on the political side that can make decisions. So we've decided so far not to hold any kind of discussion forums. It's some of the towns, I think, especially if it's a local issue. And Pelham has a great example where they have an online forum where they talk about local issues, and they post the local issues on the town Republican site, and that's become, in many respects, the go-to site for Pelham if you want to find out what's going on in the local community.
That's good.
So, excuse me, that's a great Republican town also. And I'll just throw a plug in for New Ipswich, which may be the most Republican town in the state.
Oh, really?
And they do a fantastic job of getting their vote out as well. A lot of great towns.
But I'm very interested in seeing how Pelham does that. I'll have to look up on their website to see.
Yes, they've got a website, Facebook page, and we do awards also once a year at our annual dinner. And we have different categories. Pelham and New Boston in the past few years have won the majority of the awards. Not all of them, but they've done very well. And what that does, it inspires the other towns to do better, and then we can share best practices. And so Pelham and New Boston, they've got a few other towns right on their heels now that are innovating, because it's a little bit competitive, and they're innovating and doing things that Pelham and New Boston haven't done yet. And so I think this next year we're going to find that the competition's going to be a little bit stiffer for everyone.
Well, sharing all that, I think, is going to be an interesting thing, just if nothing else, but it should, and I don't know, get people a little jazzed up on some of the things.
It does, and Hancock, they've done a great thing. It's a very democratic town. But their town committee is very fired up. It's almost like they're in the Alamo.
Oh, really?
And so they're very motivated. And they have a voter outreach program that's the best in the county, even though it's a Democratic town. And so they reach out to all of their voters, contact them multiple times, and it all ends up coming to fruition on turnout on Election Day. So, I like to say one vote in Bedford counts the same as one vote in Peterborough. A vote is a vote. So if we can generate a few more votes, it doesn't matter if you're in a Democratic or Republican town, a vote is a vote. And so we're trying to maximize our voters turning out on November 3rd.
Is there any focus on the, what do you call them, independents, if you will? Or
yes, there is. There's focus on independents and unregistered voters. And the number one focus, I think, on most political campaigns People like to say we need to reach out to the people in the middle, but I think the number one focus is making sure that your base of support
Right.
turns out.
Right.
Because you know if they come to vote,
Yeah.
they're voting for you.
Yeah.
People in the middle, it takes a little bit harder to convince them, a little bit harder to motivate them to come out. And then when they finally do, not sure which way they're going to vote. But it's the arguments.
That's right.
It's the policies. And the Republican policies, I believe firmly, are better for the average New Hampshire citizen, better for the economy, better for safety, better for maintaining your personal, and individual freedoms and rights, just better for quality of life. And so promoting what those policies are, making sure we inform people, and do it in a friendly and positive way, I think will go a long way to keeping the state from really losing its New Hampshire advantage.
Yeah. Well, I hope a lot of this stuff that you're talking about does spread throughout the state, because, I mean, we have areas that are really don't go after the voters enough, don't inform them enough, and you're doing it in a very nice social way.
Yeah. I think we have to, because nobody wants to be represented by mean people. It's like nobody wants that. But it's the policies that really make a difference. And the governor has been doing a tremendous job, and he needs reinforcements.
He does.
He needs reinforcements. And he needs reinforcements in the House and the Senate. And he can do a lot by himself with vetoes and policies, but to really enact legislation that'll continue to keep New Hampshire special, I think he's going to need that majority in the House.
He does need that support, and a very public type of support.
Yes.
And I think that, I hope we don't have as many vetoes, but some of the, right now, the early legislation proposals are just repeats of some of those 57 vetoes.
Yes, I think most, if not all, of those bills will come up again, plus more that he may have to veto.
Well, there's funny ways of coming in with income tax or sales taxes and trying to hide them as fees or something else.
Yes, District 11 and District 9, those two Senate seats are primarily in Hillsborough County.
Right.
And we are very confident that by showing the voting record of those senators, that the electorate will say, that's not why I voted for these senators 2 years ago. I did not vote for them because I wanted an income tax and because I wanted a sales tax. But if you just look at their record, that's exactly what they voted for.
In many ways. I mean,
every way you can think of, every conceivable way. They're trying to sneak them in left and right, up and down. Illegal immigrant, driver's licenses, which is essentially the mechanism we use on same-day registration for voting.
Right.
And so things like that, I don't believe that the people in this area really support that. And why they voted for those things, I really don't know. On the gun ownership side, red flag laws sound reasonable if you have a salesman that first shows it to you. It can slice it, it can dice it, it can do all these great things. But what it does, it takes away due process. And we already have mechanisms in place if somebody's dangerous where you can take them off the street. And we should have those mechanisms. But if somebody doesn't like you, say a political opponent, they make a phone call, next thing you know, the SWAT team's at your door. That's not America.
You lost your kids, you lost your home, and everything else that goes along with it.
Yeah, the unintended consequence.
That's right.
It may have been there may have been good motivations behind the beginnings of some of those red flag laws, but they are absolutely terrible for individual freedom. And as we've seen, the government, sometimes the law of unintended consequences, if you give it too much power, it gets abused, whether by accident or on purpose, and we've got to be very, very cautious of that.
Definitely. I mean, we have to handle some of the laws that we haven't handled. We can't ignore them, but and we have to do things cautious and with due process, as you said. But I don't know. Are you getting any resistance from the Justice Department or anything on some of that when you're pushing it?
Well, we haven't had any. At the county level, we generally stay under the radar with anybody at that level. But there are organizations within the state who are very, very active on their particular issues, such as Second Amendment. They're pro-life organizations, and many times they carry the heavy burden of informing people and getting the facts correct and share them. And then you always have to do your due diligence, make sure it's all correct. Then the state party also will put out the party's positions. In the legislature, we've got a great Senate Republican leader and a great Senate House leader. And we'd love to have them in the majority to be the Speaker of the House and the Senate President next go-around. But they bear a lot of the burden also to make sure we're informed and we're carrying forward the message for the entire party.
To know what's going on up there as far as the individuals are promoting stuff on the other side, so you know what errors they're making too.
Yes, and all the voting records are public, and we have them.
Right.
And it's not dirty politics to show this individual voted for these things. I think we owe that to the electorate.
Yeah, you've seen the voting patterns too. I mean, they vote like they had chains on them. They all vote the same. We're looking here in Nashua, and I don't think any of the representatives voted differently.
No.
Well, we've run out of time, so
thank you, Carl.
Thank you for coming on, and I hope you get a chance to give us an experience on later on when you get elected.
Well, if I do, I'll definitely come back and tell you what's going on.
We'll have to do a periodic review from your perspective. Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Carl.